I love you.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the EuroShow. Hey guys, we have a well. Let's introduce the guests. Actually, to be well, not the guests, the panel, as it were. We have Caleb Ariana. Say hey, Caleb.
Hey guys.
And we also have Dr. Spottermain.
So is that how you say Caleb's second name? I have no idea.
Yeah, it's more like the Spanish for spider, but yeah.
Oh, there we go. You learn something new every day, right? So
I certainly did.
So what we have for you today it is kind of a bit of a breakdown. I think our main topic is going to be the Hilmar interview that he did at the London Game Festival. That was literally only a day or two ago, which was pretty cool. But we also have some more homegrown kind of news with Elise Randolph, prolific member of Talking in Stations, and obviously prolific member of Pandemic Legion as well. Although he's not I wouldn't say he's an active member, like an active leadership member of Pandemic Legion in any way, shape, or form. But
it's Pandemic Legion's Kissinger.
So, yeah, equivalent to that, I imagine. But he has become CCP Swifty.
CCP Tay-Tay.
Or CCP Tay-Tay, as Caleb kind of wants to call him.
I insist on it because of the double reference with the AI thing.
Yeah. So yeah, like, you know, our one of our own becoming a member, a CCP dev. He's actually going to be a community dev. If anybody was wondering, not a game dev. I'm sure he'll probably end up having the gameplay chops to sort of eventually become potentially a game dev, if he wants to. But the stepping stones, right?
Yeah, we touched upon this just before the show, and we talked about it last night when the news hit and everyone was sending grats and applause. The interesting thing with a lot of the hiring from the player base, they seem to like put them on this first stepping stone before they figure out exactly what to do with the crazy nerds that they just hired. I'm pretty sure that almost historically they all started like this. Soundwave started pretty low on the rung. I think Rise did it as well. I'm pretty sure Fozzy did. And well, the community group is more like I'd say almost like a parking station where you can put a new hire until you figure out, or they figure out exactly what they want to do and where the best fit is. I think it's funny because ironically, Elise is really good at community stuff and communication, right? So he's actually not a bad fit to actually stay in community, but it would be a little bit of a waste of talent because, as I was saying yesterday, I think Elise is now the most knowledgeable about the actual in-game stuff and what we play that is currently in CCP.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, don't put them down too much.
No, it's just that they lose touch, right? Because they have to do the actual work behind the scenes. So even though Rise plays and Fozzy plays, they don't get to play the same way that you do as a player. And Elise comes straight from an actual war, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think what you're talking about there, Caleb, is something that it is, if an eventuality that comes to basically anybody who goes from being a player to becoming a developer. The longer that you're in that sort of, the longer you cross that transitionary sort of that transition, that kind of gap into being a developer and not a player as such, the longer you kind of lose touch. Like we've seen this a few times with like some devs sort of, initially coming in being, such a help to the game, and then eventually sort of end up, I don't know, it may just be a case of, through the process of time, they will eventually end up being the name or the face of something that some aspect of the player and the community, the community don't like, and so they end up getting a rapport for being a bad dev slowly, because of course everybody remembers the bad shit that happens, but doesn't always remember the good shit that happens all the time, right?
No, but again, you're segueing into talking about Stoffer Pirate, if I'm not mistaken, aka CCP Soundwave, that did start out being a massive meta player and all that jazz, and then ended up being a very corporate dude and actually really good at his job, which is why he got snatched up by Riot like almost instantly. The whole thing with hiring someone like Elise is, in my opinion, a little bit of genius. I did feel the same with Convict. Of course, they always get applications from the player base, and it must be a really tough job to figure out, because they do have massive skill sets. It's just when you do this, it's not just hiring someone with a real life skill set. It's also hiring someone that has a massive history in the game, right? So you need to also consider that. You can't hire someone that's got iffy stories, and you almost have to do like vetting and background checks. Like, what did this guy actually do in EU, right?
Well, I mean, sorry, go for it, Spot.
I was going to mention, I don't think it's necessarily written down as like a solid you must have, but if you look on all of their job listings, they do include familiarity with the game itself as a wanted. So it's one of those weird things where it's such a niche thing that I wouldn't be surprised if over the years the percentage of people at CCP that were gate players and now are devs is freakishly high compared to pretty much any other game developer out there.
It's the thing that's kind of a strange turn of events is way back before, when games and gaming were kind of in its infancy. Like, a lot of game devs came from just being tinkerers and being people who obviously just enjoy playing games, right? Like, they enjoyed playing games, and they wanted it to be a part of their professional life, and so a lot of games companies and organizations were brought out, like were born from pure players, as it were. It's sort of only recently, sort of semi-recently, that like it's become such a prolific and very wealthy industry that it's become the preserve of business types as well.
Yeah, that's true. And I was just going to say that we have to also remember that CCP is like the only games company in Iceland, and I would almost say that when they hire, let's say they hire 7 out of 10 new employees from Iceland, the joke is that I'm almost getting the feeling that in Iceland right now, it's like you get your birth certificate with your copy of EVE Online. It's like that's like just a thing that there's no one in Iceland that does not have some sort of knowledge about CCP, and anyone that games up there, I suspect, have actually tried playing EVE Online. So there's a huge chance that they know a little bit about it.
What was the board game that CCP made when they initially
Hit the spill? The hat game.
Danger game.
Danger game. Yeah.
It's such a weird game. Like very weird.
Here's your birth certificate and your copy of Danger Game. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Which pretty much financed.
Have you played it?
I have played it. It's actually really good. It's odd. It's good, odd, but it's really.
You smoke some weed and now you're addicted to crack. It's like, what?
So the thing that I enjoyed about Danger Game, and it is actually a well-crafted game, apart from the fact that, like, obviously the subject matter and stuff may be a little bit sort of strangely questionable at times.
Still good though.
But the mechanics behind it bring a game that actually can be played for quite a long period of time to a point of tension right at the end that's actually like really, really engaging. And there's not that many games that actually do that. Like, a lot of games, mechanics wise, you just the person who's in the lead ends up like shooting off to the lead, right? But you get this kind of nice sort of tension point where like people start to sort of edge together, to like almost the photo finish kind of thing right at the end, which is really cool. Anyway, you know, we've kind of segued quite heavily off the main topic here.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, but anyway,
yeah.
I did have some things that I wanted to bring up regarding, you know, players, you know, sort of going through the process of being players and then being developers and stuff like that. I don't know how relevant it is, but
well, there is almost like a pipeline, right?
Yeah.
Many of the people that end up having jobs at CCP have to go through what you would almost call the motions. Very often they would have been eventually at some position in the volunteer group, or they might actually have a background being on the CSM. And of course, then the whole veterancy of how long have they actually played the game and what useful skill sets do they have from their real life jobs. This is the criterion. It's just usually CCP ends up parking people in the volunteer group if they don't actually quit themselves, because free work is better than paid work, at least if you're a company. But again, yeah, they do go through that pipeline, and as we all know, Elise has actually been on the CSM as far as I remember.
He's been on the CSM a few. Yeah, I think he's been on it 2 years.
I think it's two periods. I think I don't remember if it was 3, but at least 2. So again, a veteran player. I actually don't remember exactly when he started. I think it's something like 6 or 7. He's a really proper veteran. As I said jokingly, I don't really recall the time that I played when Elise was not around, because that's just too far back. But yeah. He's maybe one of the most knowledgeable and proper veterans that we had in the game, and it's a major loss for the player base. And this is also a massive factor when you have these players, right? Because CCP also needs to consider: do we yank them out of the game? Because if they're important enough, doesn't that actually devalue the game?
Yeah, it's questionable, but I think the thing is the thing with Elise, the thing that I really like about when it comes to Elise is the fact that although he's such a long-term veteran, he still is a glass half full kind of guy. You know, he's still because when you play, you know, when you play EVE Online, when you use basically almost anything, right? Like for a lengthy period of time, you know, the flaws in it sort of, you know, start to sort of creep in to, you know, into, you know, your sort of your kind of like a sort of perception of it, right? Like more and more and more and more. And so that's the thing when people talk about bitter vets, right? Bitter vets are only bitter because, you know, they see all the flaws of of what they're using of the game, kind of thing like that. And it grates on them more and more and more, and they seem to devalue the good aspects of the game less and less and less as they carry on. So it's one of these things which is almost at odds with Elise, because he's always quite chipper, quite sort of upbeat about the game, and the community and the happenings and goings on.
Yeah, the joke is that he is maybe the most chippy and happy veteran in EVE Online. He does not sound as damaged as the rest of us. But again, yeah. And to answer chat, well, when it comes to CCP playing the game or being involved in the game, even though we did have that change recently where now CCP is actually allowed to play the game, there is still the issue of favoritism and influence. They are not really supposed to have their player character in positions where you can be blamed for favoritism or massive influence. So they can't take a side, which is why, yes, yeah. I suspect someone like Elise is almost going to have to do a cold cut and just completely disconnect from almost every activity that he used to have, because not only was he a player in the whole war scenario stuff, but the way that he participated in the meta with the being on TIS and all that stuff, it's way too iffy, and he can't really do any of those things. He will still be very much welcome on TIS as a representative for CCP, but he cannot be affiliated with TIS on a professional level anymore.
Yeah, well, I on a professional level, maybe not, but like, you can still be your own person outside of your professional life, and be a developer or whatever you do. It sort of in your professional life, like people do have multiple sides to themselves, as it were, and I feel like I feel like Elise can still be himself. Inside of Talking Stations. Like, he said that he was going to take a sort of I think it was like a 3-week break.
Well, so I would just
that alludes to the fact that he will be back. So.
Oh yeah. I was just going to say that I would not be against him almost biomassing Elise, and then I would like to be in his will.
Oh God!
Well, doesn't precisely that whole problem potentially scares away people from working at CCP? Because I imagine you've probably got a few talented people out there that could do great things, but they're also heavily invested in various different places in the game that they just... That sounds weird, but I think it is true that for some people, their community and the way they interact with it is almost not worth it in some cases.
This is where we need that graphics thing with sunken cost fallacy, because it ties into that, right? It's like, do I take this job and then lose all this invested time and organizational stuff and all that value? Because you kind of do. You still have the social connections, of course. You can still interact with the player base on a daily level, right? It's not going to be a problem, maybe even more so, because now you're no longer got that affiliation and tribalism on top of you, right? So, but still, the massive stuff that you've invested in this game over a decade, definitely a sunken cost fallacy problem there.
Yeah, for sure. The thing is, I don't think, considering CCP made some significant changes to the way or the rules regarding how CCPers can play the game transparently, kind of thing. Like a little while back, I don't think he'll be needing to biomass Elise Randolph. I think
No.
I think he would probably not have taken the position if he had to.
No, that was just me being greedy with the whole "can I has your stuff?" I would like to be in his will, because Elise is not poor, and even though he's one of those very modest rich people, I would definitely count him in the top 1% of EVE Online. I could get back in the trillionaire class. That would be nice.
Ooh, yeah, that would be pretty nice.
But you're not in there?
No, I'm not. After the investment fund, I
no
tanked.
pause.
I tanked. I'm definitely now a Wall Street hobo.
Well, I was going to come to you about market stuff, but clearly you don't have the money for it. So,
well, not for investment, maybe for advice. I'm one of the guys that left one of those big banks when they crashed with my box with my family photos and my plant. Hi guys, I'm walking out of here.
Oh Jesus. Okay, so we are going to where's my notes here? Adverts, yes. So so we're going to leave it there for now. We can continue the discussion, obviously, after the show in the Discord server.
Yeah, and I think there's also going to be an appearance of Elise. I think he's going to do the rounds. Both,
he will.
When he's leaving the players, and also when he is officially inserted into Iceland. He just needs to get all his Arctic gear, his lava suppression suit, and all that stuff, and need to be taught what do you do when there's an outbreak of a volcano. He needs to get his weird shots for Icelandic stuff, and all that stuff. He's preparing.
I just wanted to sort of point out the fact that, like, he's going to be leaving Florida for Iceland. So, positive, he's much less likely to be eaten by an alligator. But, negative, he needs to dodge some lava flows. So,
yeah,
you know,
and the acclimatization thing could take a while, because I think the temperature
Maybe.
difference between Florida and Iceland is a little bit tough, and he needs to figure out what do you do when the days are actually never ending and when the nights are never ending.
yeah, that's also that. Yeah, he's gonna have to get used to that.
Hey people,
Does have the advantage of no
why is the
corona there.
sun not going down? What is this?
Was that Spot?
So he does have the advantage of little to no corona there, so at least he can hide from that
That is a good point.
as
Yeah,
the volcano advances.
that is a good point. But anyway, we're going to go on a quick break. You know, by the way, if you're interested in having an advert in the ad breaks of these sorts of things, then please get in touch with us, because we can hook you up on that one. So, with that, we will see you in a few. And we're back, guys. Hey, that last advert was the advert for the was it the
Federation
the Federation
Grand Prix.
Yeah, Federation Grand Prix. Sorry, yeah. So, if you if you're like, I should check that out. Well, unfortunately, it's just finished. So, apologies on that one. I'm sure that will be talked. Sorry, was it?
No bloodbath for you.
Yeah.
It's over. And everyone died.
Yeah. That I'm sure that'll be covered in Madrill's show later on today, as to the winners and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to carry on with the main topic of the show, which is an interview that Hilmar did, an hour-long interview on the London Games Festival.
I do have a small thing before that, because it was kind of funny when you contacted me earlier this. I think, was it Monday? Yeah, I think it was Monday, like afternoon or something like that. And you were saying, do we have anything for the show? We're starving. There's nothing happening. No game news. no Eve news. And then it was like, smack interview, smack Elise announcement, smack Discord stuff. I was like, wow, okay, now we have more than a full play. It's like, this is just too much. So yeah, it was nice
pretty ridiculous.
We got a little bit of food for the show, so we got a massive amount of content, and the Hilmar interview is actually quite decent. He goes into so many topics, so that's actually something we can bite into.
Because normally the way that we put this show together in terms of like positioning during the week is that Monday, generally industry news happens on Monday, right? And so we have a moment sort of to digest some stuff. Game sort of updates and stuff happen on Tuesdays. So normally there's a lot between Monday and Tuesday to talk about. And Monday kind of like the end of Monday rolled over, and it was kind of like, oh, there's not much going on, guys. What's going on? And then
bam,
CCP,
everything.
Yeah, then Hilmar and Elise sort of came to the rescue to some degree. But this interview, it was an hour long, and it was actually an hour long talking about, well, it's entitled "The Metaverse is Coming. Are you ready?" Right. So, they were talking about a lot of sort of very meta related stuff to do not just with Eve, but with just general gaming as well.
I think
What's
I would
a
like.
metaverse? I have to ask.
Yeah, to the whole terminology of metaverse and meta, I think we need to start using some of the other Greek directions. So we could use sub and hyper and all that stuff, because if everything is meta, then it's going to be really difficult to discern what type of meta are you talking about. Are you talking about the metaverse? Are you talking about the meta doctrines? Are you talking about the meta markets? Are you talking about the news and political meta? It's like, okay, every time someone says meta, I would like to have like 10K ish, because then I would get back to being rich.
Yeah. So
what is it?
What was covered in the in this particular interview? Would you say what would be the
he
broad
covered
strokes?
so much, right? He goes all the way back and talks about the whole concept development of the game and its early history, right? He even talks about Ultima Online and the days in, well, that would be the early start of the millennium, right? So in the early 2000s, what kind of games were out, what inspired the creation of EVE Online. And of course, that's a massively deep rabbit hole that we shouldn't go into too much. But some of the inspiration is, of course, games like Frontier Elite, games like Ultima Online, and well, even to some extent, some of the civilization building games. It's very clear what kind of games the developers of EVE Online actually played and loved. And they basically tried to port this into this attempt of a massive MMO. So the original term of MMO, and they did hit those weird DNA points that no one else seemed to have copied successfully ever since, right? So I think that was a little bit fun. And eventually, at some point, we should do a special on TIS about the early development and early days of EVE Online, because it is a very, very long story, and the whole thing of the original designer kind of being pushed to the side and all that stuff. There's a lot of meat in there.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, so the general sort of topic conversation obviously is about sort of like a sort of meta universes, which they characterize. They actually sort of went into what is a metaverse, like a definition of what that is. Sort of basically saying that it's an extension beyond a particular universe. Universe in this instance not meaning the universe, but just basically a world, a space, essentially something that a construct that has limits to some degree. And so
and it's also it's like a reality layer on top of reality. Everyone has been talking about things like augmented reality and stuff like that. But when we're talking about things like metaverse, it's really the fact that when you get these semi-permeable realities next to each other, right? When you have this existence and life, almost like a second life inside a game universe like EVE Online and the whole New Eden experience, the way that it then spills into real life, and the way that real life spills into EVE Online, this create this metaverse existence where I've written about some of this in the past, especially when it comes to personality and RPing, and the fact that there's of course hardcore classical LARP like RPing in EVE Online, but more interestingly, even people that hate that stuff, they can't get around the fact that the personality that they represent in the game will be some sort of extrapolation and extreme version of aspects of themselves. And that means that you are involuntarily always role-playing in EVE Online in some form or another. And this then spills back into your real life, right? Because if you then socially interact a lot with EVE nerds, they will know you as the identity you play, even though you might get so friendly that you actually dox yourself and share your real name. And it's like all this stuff and shenanigans goes on in a universe like EVE Online, more so than I think in any other game out there.
Well, I think the thing is people are getting a lot more, just in general. I don't mean this in terms of just gamers, but like just people in general are getting a little bit more comfortable with the idea of, pseudonyms, game tags, that kind of thing, right? It's becoming more of a just less of an oddity. Let's put it that way, because
it's becoming normal, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because it ties back to the whole story about Elise becoming a CCP and stuff, right? I don't even know his real name, and everyone would call him Elise at events, right? And what do we call him in the future? And the new generations might insist on calling him CCP Swift or CCP Tay, but the rest of us will still eventually revert back to calling him Elise, right? And when we meet, we usually use the names that we have in the game. And I think on a daily basis, I get called Caleb more than I get called my real name, which is weird, but it's becoming normal for many of us gamers, right?
You'll find actually, when you go back to sort of watch interviews with CCP devs, a lot of them call each other by their real names, as it were. They very rarely use their actual CCP names, as it were, which is kind of funny. I always thought that was sort of a strange one, adopting a CCP name but not actually using it in in a workplace environment. I guess maybe to some degree it's a little bit less professional than using just your real name as such. But it's kind of I find it kind of funny that Elise is going to go in, probably like many other devs, sort of having basically three aspects of his personality. His real life name, the name that we know, obviously Elise Randolph, and obviously CCP Swift.
But again, if we have talked to him and called him Elise for 10 years or more, even though he's suddenly now, auto-doxing and revealing his real name, it's not really going to change how we talk to him. At least,
no.
I don't really care what CCP developer's real name is. I will insist on using either their CCP tag or their original gamer tag, because that's the name that I know them by. This is what I've called them for years and years, and I don't think that this transition just suddenly goes, okay, now you have to call me, I don't know,
something
Rick
else.
Or something. It's like, I don't care. You're not Rick to me.
Yeah, and I kind of think back to someone who I definitely, someone who I think a lot of people now know sort of the real name, his real name, but like everyone, like I still call Brisk, right? Even though I know his first and last name, I still call him Brisk.
Yeah, it's the same with the Mittani and many of the people that are outed with their real name. I will still use their game name, because otherwise I am imposing some sort of intimacy that I don't think necessarily is there. It's again, maybe with Hilmar, right? Hilmar, because we've seen him naked. We could maybe use his real name, but other than that, if I haven't seen you naked, I'm not going to use your real name. That's like my rule of thumb.
Well, Hilmar's not his CCP name, is it? It's Hilmar, or the other way around.
It's CCP Hilmar or Hilmar Vega Peterson. Yeah. Interestingly, the conversation that Hilmar had with Michael French in this interview as well, they did move into an area sort of where we're of the topic of conversation that we're having at the moment with regards to, but they termed it belonging to more than one context, right? So, and basically describing as like EVE Online is a novel way of providing an avenue or an aspect or a way for you to belong to more to multiple contexts, like basically belong to groups, but basically have the ability to take on responsibilities, right? And in doing so, growing yourself. Yeah.
Your identities will change depending on where you are in what circles of life, right? So when you are at the parents teacher meeting, and when you are out with your friends, or when you are with your family, sure, it's the same core personality, but you shift your persona ever so slightly in all of these instances. And when you're talking about things like metaverses and being parts of more groups, right, then that just extends massively. And I think maybe that's the very unique thing that pulls a lot of people, or keeps a lot of people in EVE Online, is that you get these ethnocentric circles of what I would almost say is more your core, right? It's really your hobbies, your deepest interest, your closest friends, or subculture groups, right? I keep mentioning that if you are in the Imperium, it seems to be that your ethnocentric circles, with the EVE tribalism, is first you're a goon, then you're an EVE player, then you're a turbo nerd, and then you're a person in the real world, right? It's like it's these circles of affiliation, and the intimacy level is extended like that. So we will defend our corp, our alliance, our gamer friends, and our nerd friends.
I was about to say
In
our
that
turbo
order, right?
nerdness. I was about to say, yeah, our turbo nerdness. Yeah.
And I am so pleased that recently the Imperium has actually started pushing with the no nerd shaming, and it is now allowed to be out and turbo nerd with whatever you do, whether you're collecting waifu pillows, or do model trains, or actually I said that we now have paint sniffers and glue sniffers, and we don't shame any of them.
Well, I mean, inclusivity, right? I guess that's
Yeah,
the
and
name of the game.
it is weird. It's just it's really weird for us as EVE players. This goes all the way back to a very, very early Zero Punctuation episode about EVE Online, where he said that EVE players are to nerds what nerds are to real people, and to us these things are just so common and normal. But to normal people out there, and even to other gamers, this is weird, and they're only like tiptoeing into that whole thing now, but we've been living in it for 10 years or more, right?
It's almost like the with the whole corona kind of virus sort of thing going on last year and this year, with everybody staying at home, and then obviously adopting Zoom. It kind of it I have that same sort of feeling with regards to normal people and them adopting Zoom, and me kind of going like, we've been using this for years. Like we have to evolve and move away from Zoom to something better.
I would like to do a poll of EVE players and ask how many of them actually ended up being in some sort of advisory role when it came to transitioning to this thing, because I get the feeling that every single EVE player was sitting there in their real life corporate situations going, this is normal, this is easy peasy, I have all the tools, what do you need?
Yeah, very true. I mean, and in terms of like the whole inclusiveness sort of thing aspect of going back to that sort of thing, Hilmar did kind of say in this interview, one of the things that that CCP and EVE started with, and has kept them in good stead for the longest period of time, which is basically the what he called the network effect, right? And so basically what he termed as the network effect basically being everybody having the ability to interact with everyone else with no real kind of borders as such. Obviously that to us, to EVE players, kind of is defined by the single shard rather than multi-shard, and that's kind of where the sort of Caleb's inclusion of mentioning that Ultimate Online was briefly alluded to in the interview, mainly because Ultimate Online was the game that basically generated or came up with the term the term shard to mean like not a single server where everybody interacts with, but a litany of different servers where people can join a sort of a more confined gaming experience.
Yeah, they were the first to make the mistakes, right? They were the first
Yeah.
to mess up PvP. They were the first to make a complete mess of an ecosystem, and they were the first to actually completely split MMOs into shards. It's like that's like 3 mistakes all at once. But again, it was still the grandfather of all the other games that we're used to today. But it's interesting that CCP seemed to have, well, at least some of the devs in the early days seem to have said, okay, sharding bad. PvP needs to be some sort of balance, so we need to have some sort of ecosystem of creation and destruction. And when it comes to the actual ecosystem and harvesting stuff, we may need to put some limiters and balance issues in there. And they did so very, very successfully. The initial design of EVE Online pre 2007, I would say, was near perfect. Of course, the game was bugged in many, many ways. But when you're talking about
the principles,
balance,
you're talking about the principles.
Yes, the balance of the principles and how they had put their brain to work on things like high slot, mid slots, low slots, their functionality, how you fit all these things, how everything has a counter, how everything is modular and based on agency. Like you didn't get locked into fits. The fit creativity in the early days of EVE was bonkers. And of course it broke because there was always these edge cases where you could do things that was like, okay, this is not supposed to happen, guys. So yes, it was broken, but
people putting multiple micro-warp drives on their ships and stuff like that, yeah.
The speed you could go with back then when you stacked prop mods is like...
It would melt people's brains today. But I think
I always wanted to play with Cavalry Ravens. Never got the chance though.
I thankfully being part of Init and being part of the at least the introduction of sort of the Raven fleet for a little while, until it was kind of nerfed from the game to some degree. I did experience that cavalry sort of Raven moment of landing multiple salvos of rockets onto a single target at once, which is really, really fucking cool. I'm just going to say. But with that, this interview is pretty extensive. There's literally no chance that we're going to get through all of it at all today. So we'll probably park that for at least for today.
I do have one thing.
Okay.
I do have one thing. Hilmar has done a few interviews recently, and in at least 2 of them, he mentions short selling and short squeezes. And I think someone, I think someone poked him on the back and saying, "Please stop saying that because you cannot actually do this in EVE Online." But now he kind of doubled down, and instead he said, "Well, in the future, we would really like to create things that can introduce things like this in EVE Online." So he's just promised that we will get stuff like contracts for difference and futures and stuff like shorts.
Don't get your hopes up too much.
No, and this is why I'm still going to say, don't worry, Hilmar. I'm working on figuring out how to make this an actual service in the game for you, so you can actually go and check how to actually introduce it in EVE.
Oh, look at that. I mean, actually, right at the end, he was actually one of the questions posed to him was about autonomous actions inside of the game, and he did tackle that pretty well, to be honest. Talking about how autonomous work sort of devalues non-autonomous work to some degree. How he understands that people do want to set up, processes that create passive income, and that should be a thing, but also understands that they need to work to do more to create active, engaging active mechanics for things like mining and stuff like that. So that was pretty
cool. Do have to remember that when you're talking about things like markets and industry, yes, it's an AFK activity, but it also incurs a massive risk, right? You don't just automatically win when you're doing market stuff. You sometimes lose point and proof sitting right here, right? So you can massively fail if you're doing big things on the market, because every time you operate in the market, you have a lot of money rolling in there. So you are extremely sensitive to volatility and depreciating prices and all that stuff, right? And also the competition can be really, really harsh, which is back to why they did the bad market changes recently. The whole thing is that when someone like Hilmar messes with the market or tells the developers to do stuff, it's really important that he does so in a way where he doesn't like put in the end stuff. We do not need short selling or options right now. From a mere game development point of view, what we would need before that is what's mentioned in chat. We would need something like an actual stock market, being able to trade the NPC shares and the actual player corporation shares. This would be something that we would need way earlier than short selling. Same with, we have a game that's supposed to be a capitalist simulator, but we don't have player-to-player billing. That is mind-blowingly dumb.
And you know that would be a paradigm shift in the way that players in EVE can trade with each other. Maybe not a paradigm shift in trading as a concept in general.
A paradigm shift is not giving us some sort of weird, stupid short thing, and it's not giving us a raffle. It would be giving us player-to-player billing with accepting and canceling and declining them. It would be getting the actual ability to trade our actual shares right now. A few features that is usually inherent in shares. Hell, we would even need to have the feature of create a bond. That would be really useful, or create an actual loan contract. There's so many things that's way further down the list of things where this is what you do first, then you do the other stuff later. Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to park that for now. We can just continue this discussion, obviously, for a long period of time. You guys out there, if you want to continue this discussion with us, we will be in the Discord server. You can kind of get the you can get linked up with our Discord server by I think the bot kind of like every so often periodically puts the link in chat. It's also down below on Twitch. But for now, we're going to go for a little break. But if you like what you're listening to, like what you're watching, give us a thumbs up, like it, all that kind of thing. If you're watching the VOD on, say, YouTube, what have you, get subscribed, that kind of stuff. It really helps us out and stuff. So that's really cool. But for now, we're going to go for an ad break. So check out these words from our non-sponsors, I guess. And we're back. Hey guys. I was just remarking to Sport that he missed his own advert, but apparently he didn't because he had his phone on or whatever. Like a pro, connected all time, every time.
I thought it'd be weird if I said something in the Twitch chat.
That would be a bit strange. Anyway.
Yeah. Now we're moving from the really good news, the fairly good news, to some potentially really bad news.
I hope it isn't going to be as bad as it could potentially be, but Microsoft are in talks to buy Discord. Oh,
yeah, that's not going to end well, right?
You know what?
This is really bad.
I dare say, actually, Microsoft being the one in interest of buying it is probably the best option.
Yeah,
actually,
because
I'm not a massive fan of Microsoft. Let's just put it that way. Like, they have fucked so many things up. It's just ridiculous. I mean, to be fair, they have a competing brand to some degree with Microsoft Teams.
With Teams.
So I'm not sure.
I think what Spot is hinting at is you want one of the potentially big boys to buy this, because you want someone to buy this where they don't actually split it apart and kill it, or monetize it in terrible ways. You want someone that just gets it for the actual IP value and a moderate return of investment on product development, like doing enterprise services, which is something that many people have actually asked Discord developers for, right? Because Discord is such a good tool.
It's exceptional.
With just a few tweaks and the fact that you could put it on a corporate platform, a lot of people might actually be interested in it. Just shape it up a little bit, change the UI to be a little bit more corporate looking, and make people capable of having their own service and control their own information. But they've not done that in the past, right? Because that would it would require some massive investments into product development, because they would have to create a whole new branch, right, of their product.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I get where Spot is coming from with regards to, this isn't the worst situation that could potentially be.
Tencent.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. I was like, could you imagine if it was bought by a company that was basically had the Chinese Communist Party be able to extract all of your information and utilize it wherever they want. Like, that would just be bad. That'd be really bad.
The wrong CCP.
Yeah, the wrong.
It could be worse.
CCP.
It could be Facebook buying it. So there's much more horrible situations. This is exactly the same as back when we were talking about who was going to buy CCP. And I think Mac is on the team that says this could have been way worse. If EA had bought CCP, we would have had a whole different level of toxic stuff.
Jesus, yeah, that would be bad.
On Microsoft fishing for Discord, if you actually look at their recent behavior, it makes a lot of sense, and it's not necessarily a bad outcome. Because if you look at they acquired GitHub not long ago,
they've also been
they haven't fiddled it much.
They've also been pushing. Well. They've also been pushing with their, they do have their gaming kind of brands. They have the Microsoft, sort of the Xbox Game Pass kind of stuff that they've been, working with continually, and it's getting to be, good value for money, as it were. I actually initially had it because it was on offer via as a discounted thing through Discord, to be completely honest, strangely enough. So they clearly had partnership with Microsoft to some degree there, and you'd like to start off with. But yeah, I'm just there's kind of conversation with people saying that they should like, how do you guys feel? How about this? How do you guys feel about if Discord became a public company, for example?
Well, I think more importantly, I think what is important is what is the monetization model going to be? Because of course you do need a monetization model on a product that you're buying. So what is it that a buyer would want to do to make it viable? Because right now it's not a moneymaker. This thing does not create good profit at all, right? So it's slightly dissimilar to, say, CCP.
I mean,
right?
I pay Nitro. I pay for Nitro. I think a lot of people pay for Nitro.
Yeah, but I'm saying that that is a very small vanity-based monetization model, and it doesn't create a lot of profit, and it's been very expensive to develop with this platform. But it's almost the opposite of PA, right? When PA bought CCP, they knew it was making money, and then they got it for half the price, so that's nice. So they are actually making double the expected ROI to what they invested in it. So they would not want to touch this. As long as this thing keeps making this level of profit, don't touch it. Don't mess with a cow that gives good milk, right? And in the case of Discord, an owner like Microsoft would have to figure out how do we make money on this. This is why I'm a fan of the bigger owners. So someone like Google, someone like Microsoft, hell, even someone like Amazon, because they would understand what type of monetization scheme to put on this thing. This is why I talk about enterprise stuff. That is the obvious choice, using that new product so it doesn't mess with other products and you don't suddenly get a migration of the users, right? Because if they put something, everyone will leave instantly.
The thing is, when it comes to sort of a large organization, sometimes they can be a bit not tone deaf, but just be kind of deaf in terms of, you know, what the actual community needs, what the end users want from the product, as it were. You know, you see this with Twitch, like how they've been very slow to react to, you know, things like copyright claims and such things like that. You know, they're still working on developing copyright claim technologies and stuff like that for Twitch. And they have a roadmap for that continues to the end of this year, where they're still working on it. Like it's slow progress for somebody for a subsidiary of Amazon, of all things. You know,
I'm just pointing out that this whole thing with whether it's even a Chinese company and my personal freedoms, is like, we live in a world where everything is available for someone that wants your information. It's not difficult. You are using so many platforms on a daily basis that there's nothing that you do that's secret. This should have been figured out 20 years ago when the internet was young, and now we just suffer the problems. So if this is your only thing, you should just I remember back in the day, very early days, when one of the IT early security specialists was asked, so how do you make sure that you are completely safe? And he basically said, unplug your computer.
Yeah, just you know, basically get off the grid, essentially.
Because there is no other solution. Like, these people with their smartphones and their smart TVs and their Alexas, and it's like, oh, my security and my privacy. It's like, you've already messed it up completely. Like, you have no secrets anymore, dude. You should not be discussing whether or not it should be one company or another buying Discord. It doesn't matter to you. Everything is out in the open.
Well, one thing you touched on, Caleb, but I don't think made it super clear about Discord, and correct me if this is not true, but as far as I'm aware, it is. Discord is one of those tech mega startups, whatever you want to call them, that doesn't make money. That they have revenue, yes, but their expenses are massively higher than their income. Even because you've got companies like Tesla, for example, that were doing that for years, and it's quite common in the tech industry. So something that has to be accepted is whoever buys Discord is likely to squeeze it for every penny it's got in some form, because it has to make money. They're not going to drop, was it 10 billion? Was it something like that? To just pour more money down the toilet. They're going to squeeze it. They're going to monetize it.
And I have a concern that the aspects they're going to squeeze are going to be the aspects that cost the most, which will be, you know, the video conferencing, you know, sort of features.
Just to be a little bit tinfoil hat, it's deeper than that. When you're working on the level of these corporations, it's not as simple as, oh, I have to make this cow give milk. No. You actually don't. Because if you're someone like Microsoft, right, this is also securing your current income stream, right? If you are making tons of money on things like Teams, right, and the existing products that you are selling, the risk of someone like Discord going, oh, you know what we are missing? We are missing that corporate enterprise service that we can actually launch. Let's just put some money into actually doing that and offering that to the public at a price competitive level. Then you would be stealing market shares from Microsoft. So it could just be a preemptive strike going, we better buy this before they become a competitor. And then it's actually a smart thing. You're securing your current return of investment month over month on your current products by buying a potential competitor out of the market.
So if you kind of to a degree, do you think that maybe a company out there would see the purchase of Discord as basically being a loss leader to bring people into purchasing, products of theirs? Like for example, if sorry, what?
I think it's a defensive move, but it's also a very practical move, because the experience that is currently and the IP value, the brain value in Discord is extremely useful and applicable to Microsoft products. They can take a lot of this and use it in things and products that they already have, like improving things like Teams, improving their whole suite of remote tools, because it's like two different sides. It's the corporate side and the private side. And now you can get all those grades in between. And I think that's really, really valuable for someone like Microsoft. I think it's a very, very smart move.
Okay. Well, we'll park that for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you're watching this live, if you're not, if you're watching the VOD, then I hope you enjoyed what you've seen, what you've heard. But I think that'll be it for today, at least. Don't forget, we have a US time zone show that's discussing more the intricacies and insides of goings on in EVE, and we'll be back probably on Friday. In fact, yeah. So thank you very much, guys, for watching, and we'll see you then. Take care.